Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. How are you? Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, now we will come to today's news. MSNBC is not happy. When are they ever happy? But they're especially unhappy with, of course. Who else? Elon Musk. According to the woke warriors over at MSNBC, Elon Musk is a hypocrite. We're gonna see what's got the leftist over at MSNBC all bent out of shape. MSNBC is experiencing their usual hysterics today, accusing Elon Musk of, quote, quietly suspending left-leaning Twitter accounts for ideological reasons, all the while reinstating far-right accounts that broke Twitter's rules in the past. Now, you'll notice in that statement, no mention whatsoever the fact that those Twitter rules, we now know those terms of service, were often flouted by Twitter employees as they censored content in accordance with their own left-wing sentiments in cooperation with Democratic politicians and deep state operatives, as the internal documents and emails in the Twitter files made absolutely clear over the weekend. So I think that's a rather telling omission on the part of these left-wing activists disguised as journalists over at MSNBC, who supposedly are so concerned about hypocrisy. Regardless, MSNBC is very concerned that Elon Musk is indeed busy turning Twitter into a massive platform for what they call the far right. And he's doing so by reinstating right-wing accounts that were previously banned, while at the same time he's supposedly banning left-wing accounts. Now this MSNBC piece cites a report by The Intercept which details how Musk has over the past week or so actively suspended a number of what MSNBC calls notable left-wing accounts notable for, quote, documenting right-wing activity. Would you like to take a guess as to what these accounts really are? Well, according to the Intercept report, these are all primarily Antifa accounts, or as they call them, anti-fascist organizers and journalists. That's right. We now have Antifa journalist folks. Let this hit you. Propagandists, friend Tifa, are whining and complaining that they're being mistreated. And TFFA. But then again, Antifa is just an idea, right? According to the man who can't even ride a bike, but according to The Intercept, all the accounts that had been suspended, quote, had been singled out for criticism by Andy Ngo, a far-right writer whose conspiratorial error-riddled reporting on left-wing protests and social movements has fueled the mass delusion that Antifa is not just a handful of small anti-fascist groups that counter right-wing threats, which it is, but a shadow army of domestic terrorists, which it is not. Musk is apparently among those who have mistaken Ngo's largely fictional reporting. For fact, in a public exchange on Twitter on Friday, Musk invited Ngo to report Antifa accounts that should be suspended directly to him. Conspiratorial error-ridden reporting, you know. Funny, I wonder if The Intercept ever referred to the New York Times or the Washington Post in that way. You know, the whole Vladimir Putin stole the 2016 election on our Biden laptop was nothing more than Russian disinformation. J6 was insurrection. What is a woman? What is recession? Yeah, all that stuff? Well, no, of course they did not, to my knowledge, because look at how they themselves report. They are exemplar div of the seemingly impossible notion of woke leftists having so much as a semblance of self-awareness. Unlike the pampered writers for both MSNBC and The Intercept, and his knowledge of Antifa is not theoretical or friendly. He's actually been the victim of a physical attack from Antifa radicals. He's been subjected to ongoing death threats, threat to violence from this supposedly tranquil group whose only goal in life is to expose the threats of the far right. I mean, it's such a deliberately sanitized portrait of Antifa could even remotely be characterized as reporting rather than the blatant partisan eyes. Propaganda that is itself nothing less than a parody of repulsiveness. As it turns out, these left-wing activists disguised as journalists are the real hypocrites. So getting back to MSNBC, astonishingly, their concern over these Antifa accounts getting purged, I kid you not, is, quote, the chilling effect that it's going to have on speech. The very people want to police your pronouns, the very people who are openly calling for accounts to be silenced and suspended, the very people who have absolutely no problem whatsoever with 100 Biden bombshell being deliberately silenced and censored at the behest of government agents. Those very people are now concerned about free speech. Again, it's a parody repulsiveness. Yesterday, the Washington Examiner reported on a new poll from TIP that just came out on the trustworthiness of what they called the traditional media, what we would call the legacy media or the lamestream media. And the poll found that 61% of respondents have little to no trust at all in the legacy media. 6 out of 10 no longer see the legacy media as a reliable disseminator of information. Now, why is that? Well, the poll itself tells us the one group that has overwhelming confidence in the media's trustworthiness is self-identified Democrats. The legacy media today is largely nothing more than a propaganda wing of Democrat policies and sentiments. If leftist voices are being silenced on social media platforms, it's the greatest affront to free speech ever. If right-wing voices get silenced, well, that's for public safety and national security. You see, this is what you get with your so-called when your so-called free press becomes enslaved to partisan sentiments. Heads I win, tails you lose. You sweat, I glisten. If hypocrisy is to claim to adhere to standards that one's own behavior mirrors from, there is no one more guilty of such than woke left us. Alright, so we've got to talk about Donald Trump here for a little bit, and with a heavy focus on all of the dumped Trump people. There's a Truth Social post that Donald Trump released that has many conservatives outraged. Oh, Donald Trump claims that he wants to terminate the Constitution. It's a step too far. All the Never Trump heirs, the dump Trump folks, are buying the narrative hook, line, and sinker, feeding in once again to what seems to be absolute fake news. But this massive explosion or growth of Never Trump heirs isn't really sitting well with me. You know, there seems to be an element of naivete, possibly ignorance, whatever you want to call it, that continues to remain present at the back of my mind. Are you paying attention? I mean, seriously, are the Never Trump heirs paying attention? We just saw the release of the Twitter files. And on top of that, we have extra information dropping, suggesting a massive shadow government effort, a deep state effort to suppress information during elections, to suppress candidates on the behest of the DNC, and Republicans are getting mad at Donald Trump for venting his frustration over this deeply corrupt system that has dedicated itself to destroying him and, frankly, destroying you and your political will. Somehow Donald Trump's the bad guy. I mean, I can't wrap my head around that. Donald Trump, bad. My Constitution, the Constitution. Are you not seeing the bigger picture? Not to mention this whole thing that all we need to do is dump Donald Trump and then instantly everything is going to go back to normal and Republicans are going to win elections again. I mean, really, after you've seen all of the efforts, everything that Democrats have been doing to absolutely destroy Republicans, to slander you, to destroy you, frankly, they've essentially waged war on you. You think that all that needs to be done here is just a little change in candidate and everything's gonna go back to normal. I mean, I'm telling you what I'm thinking right now is you got to be out of your damn mind. I feel like this reaction is short-sighted. I feel like people are falling for a distraction. People are falling for another Democrat narrative and ignoring the big picture. You know, this is exactly what they want. Here's Korean John Pierre, when questioned about the Twitter files, saying, well, you know, it's just old news in a distraction. Everyone listen to this. Decisions were made. My question was, is it the White House view that these decisions were made appropriately in light of what has come out? Which decisions? By whom? By Twitter on? Okay, so look, we see this as an interesting, or a coincidence, if I may, that he would so haphazardly, Twitter also haphazardly pushed this distraction. That is a full of old news, if you think about it. And at the same time, Twitter is facing very real and very serious questions about the rising volume of anger, hate, and anti-Semitism on their platform. Okay folks, you'll see it again to exactly what they want. They want the Twitter files in the Biden family's corrupt foreign business dealings to be old news and to be a distraction and pay attention to Donald Trump, who wants to terminate the Constitution. I really would like to get into some of Donald Trump's Truth Social posts here, but we legitimately cannot. It's against YouTube rules to talk about some of these narratives. And so I literally cannot even show you guys the Truth Social posts, and if anything, right there, I mean, that adds on to what I'm talking about: social media companies working with the DNC, working with the FBI to censor political speech to the benefit of one political party, and Republicans are outraged over the media's misrepresentation of Donald Trump's words. Again, what am I thinking right now? You've got to be out of your damn mind. Cowardly conservatives are once again playing directly into the DNC, his head. You know, we're just going to sit here and pretend that after 6 years of slander, defamation, destruction, divisive political attacks, phony stories, misrepresented and altered evidence, endless multi-million-dollar investigations based on salacious information, manipulation of the algorithms, unfair censorship, after everything, we're going to pretend as if Donald Trump doesn't have a reason to be angry. Excuse me, but Donald Trump should be frickin' pissed. And you know what, so am I. Get there are so many people who are just so easily willing to abandon him. What message does that send? I mean, that is what they want. You are playing directly into the Democrat hand. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but we're now getting reports that Liz Cheney, Ron DeSantis, and Elon Musk are now among finalists for Time Person of the Year, Liz Cheney and Ron DeSantis. You say, do you notice that the media is trying to promote Liz Cheney, the most infamous never-Trumper, and Ron DeSantis, the supposedly heir to the throne? Do you think it's by accident that they're promoting these two individuals? No, they're trying to get rid of Donald Trump, and people are falling for it hook, line, and sinker. I mean, you're seriously going to sit there and listen to them? Mr. Kratz lecture you about the Constitution? Everyone listen to this. You know, Herschel Walker, Charlie is unfit for the job, and it's embarrassing. It seems a little racist and condescending in a million different ways. He is unmoored, he seems to have a lot of problems, but just intellectually he's clearly not even remotely close to being up for the job, completely unfit. But I would argue at this point that any Republican that can't say what Donald Trump said is wrong. And I stand up for American values and for our democracy and our Constitution, and I reject what Donald Trump said, and I reject the values and the comments that he is bringing to the table, and I reject him as a candidate. If they can't do that, they are equally as unfit. As Herschel Walker. Okay. Standing up for the Constitution, says Mika Brzezinski at MSNBC. I mean, if Donald Trump supposedly said what they're accusing him of, that he wants to terminate the Constitution. I mean, you would think that Democrats would be his number one fan. It's been years of Democrats arguing that the Constitution is an archaic document that must be thrown into the garbage. I mean, the first two amendments, the two most important amendments, they adamantly disagree with. Joe Biden has already proved himself to be the most unconstitutional president of my lifetime, and we're going to pretend as if Donald Trump is a threat to the Constitution? Give me a break. Who is buying this crap? Who is seriously willing to stand on their side and to throw Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, and frankly, a great president, the greatest of my lifetime, and it's not even up for debate. It's not even close. Who's willing to betray that man and side with the biggest hypocrites of all? Oh, well, this goes too far. Donald Trump. You know that Truth Social post that the media purposely misinterpreted and twisted and misrepresented as public, that goes too far. Meanwhile, the Democrat shadow cabal that's controlling the flow of information, controlling algorithms and manipulating low information susceptible voters, you know, those Democrats that are working with foreign spies, paying them to fabricate phony dossiers, which was then used to apply for an illegal FISA warrant to spy on the United States president, to then justify a special counsel investigation, which was then used to illegitimately try to impeach the sitting president of the United States. Oh, that's not something you should be worried about. No, you should be worried about a poorly written Donald Trump's Truth Social post. That's the real threat to democracy. Wake up, pay attention, the media is trying to create a distraction. The Twitter files is one of the biggest corruption scandals ever. And I've seen some reporting that there's particular left-wing news outlets that only devoted 7 seconds of airtime to reporting on this massive scandal of a lifetime. And of course, it's involving the media, the left-wing media of the DNC. You think it's a coincidence that these media figures and the DNC are now trying to change the topic of conversation on Donald Trump's Truth Social post, rather than what's being uncovered? At this point, if you're taking the stance that Donald Trump should be dumped, that it's time to dump Trump, I mean, you've been intellectually compromised. They got you. It's over. You're out of the fight. You gave in, you gave up. And if you think that just moving on from Donald Trump and bringing in the next guy is going to change anything, you are out of your mind. Because the next guy who actually decides to stand up and challenge the status quo, to challenge the corruption, to do something about it, they're going to do the exact same thing to that individual as they're doing to Donald Trump. Nothing's going to change because, once again, conservatives are willing to assume the fetal position, to roll over and to let Democrats walk all over you. That's my view. That's how I'm looking at this whole thing. You know, I don't dislike Ron DeSantis. I think he's great. Do I have my doubts that he might just end up being a neocon, that he might not actually fight the deep-seated federal agency DNC media and social media corruption? Yeah, I have my doubts. I'm not sure if you would actually try to take on that machine. And I don't dislike the guy. I think he's a political superstar. But the idea that the man who sacrificed so much his public image, his wealth, his family, relationships, his interpersonal relationships, his health, I mean, the list goes on, the man who sacrificed everything to take on that corrupt machine, the idea that he should just be dumped because the liberal media told you, because Fox News told you, I just cannot subscribe to that belief. I cannot and I will not. Donald Trump is still the GOAT, period. That's my view. And I think a lot of people are falling for the psyop. If you appreciate these updates, please smash that like button, put your comments down below. Thank you.